for the second night of the debate. I appreciate being here, meeting with Mr. Hatcher. David Brown is moderator, and thankful to Mr. Turner for moderating for me. First of all, let's have the questions I submitted to Mr. Hatcher on the overhead for Tuesday night, July the 26th. I want to get fixed in your mind some of these answers, and I will have a reason to reflect upon those as we go on. Now, I have, number one, where in the Bible is the record of Jesus and the apostles obeying the law in the use of instrumental music and worship? And Mr. Hatcher answered that by saying, on this sheet that I have in front of me at this time, presumes there is a law that demands instrumental music and worship. Now, he didn't really answer my question, but this implies that the law in the Old Testament under which Jesus and the apostles lived did not require instrumental music. And yet he's trying to throw out instrumental music on the basis that it's covered by the law. Now, you can't have it both ways, Mr. Hatcher. The law either required instrumental music or it didn't. And you're saying here that this presumes there is a law that demands instrumental music. Now, you tell us whether or not Jesus Christ was under the law, and did the law require the use of instrumental music? Now, you tell us that because you've been trying to kick the instruments out by saying that the law has been fulfilled and it was nailed to the cross. Now, Jesus came to fulfill the law. And if the law required instrumental music be used in worship, Jesus Christ had to do that to obey the law. And I want you to tell us when Jesus Christ obeyed the law according to the New Testament record of his life. When did he use instrumental music in worship? Now, you tell us. Now, we'll come back to that. Number two, which of the Old Testament Psalms are excluded from Ephesians 5:19 and 3:16? And he says none. And yet last night when he was up here, he was trying to imply that Ephesians 5:19 and Psalms or Colossians 3:16 did not refer to the Psalms. He said, oh, well, they could be included, but there were other Psalms. You tell us what those other Psalms were, Mr. Hatcher. I just dare you to find any verse in the Bible that speaks about other Psalms and what's written in the Old Testament. Now, number three, if we today may not appropriately, and I'm quoting him out of the newspaper, and I'll flash the chart up here in a minute, if we may not appropriately sing certain Psalms, are we also forbidden to read them? He said no. Well, now he had got it that you can't sing certain Psalms because they're not appropriate, but you can read those same Psalms. Now, I just don't get the distinction here, Mr. Hatcher. You tell us why is it inappropriate to sing, and yet you can read it. If it's wrong to sing it, why isn't it wrong to read it? Now, number four. Is your position the following? Musical instruments were approved in the worship of God before the law, under the law, in the days of the prophets, during the life of Christ, and in heaven, yet disapproved in the church. Now, friends, you can study your Bible, and every one of those instances, before the law, under the law, in the days of the prophets, during the life of Christ, and in heaven, musical instruments were never disapproved of in any of those places. But Mr. Hatcher wants us to believe they're disapproved in the church. Now, what did he do with this? He circled part of this in here and said, my answer. I don't know what his answer is. You come up here and clarify that. Then number five, is there any record that God ever disapproved of the use of instruments in worship of God at any time, past, present, or future? He said yes, but he doesn't give me a verse. Where in the Bible did God ever disapprove of the use of instruments in the worship of God at any time, past, present, or future? You can't find a single place in the Bible where God said, I reject the use of instrumental music in worship. Number six, do you still teach that solo means sing only? He said yes in the New Testament, and I'm going to show you how he contradicts his brethren on that one. Now, we've got him out on the limb with that. Now, let's get to this chart over here. Now, I know that Mr. Hatcher spent a whole lot of time doing this. Now, you couldn't do that in just an hour and kick that out. And I know he's real proud of this chart, and I want to compliment him on the nice work. The lettering looks good. If he did it, he ought to change profession from preaching to artwork and painting, because he could do a lot better job at that than he's doing at defending anything in the Bible. But now look, ladies and gentlemen, I explained to you last night that this was taken out of context, and I went to the trouble, Brother Schweitzer here went to the trouble, to reproduce this for me to show you how it's taken out of context. Now notice he says the mere absence of commands, and he's trying to say that Ross says they're absence of commands. Have you ever heard me say there any absence of commands? I answered his question last night when he asked me if they were commanded in the New Testament. I said yes. I wrote yes on there. They're commanded in the New Testament. But now look, this is the assumption. Bring it down a little bit, brother, where I can get right on the point where we want. The assumption. It's back up earlier, I think, isn't it? Okay, right here. Now, listen to this. And the fact is, it is purely an assumption. An assumption by whom? Men like Hatcher and Brown and Church of Christ preachers that oppose music. They assume that there's no commands in the New Testament. All right? It is purely an assumption that it was not used by the disciples in the New Testament, period. Being commonly practiced in the Old Testament, the mere absence of commands in the New Testament on the basis of this assumption by Hatcher and Brown and others, that's not my assumption, it's theirs. I'm just taking their assumption that there's no commands. All right? The mere absence of it, taking their assumption of commands in the New Testament regarding instrumental music, is not in itself evidence that such a common practice was not a part of the praising of God. Now he's trying to say that I say that there is an absence of command. He's the very one that I was taking the assumption from. It's men like Hatcher and Brown. Why would I ever do that? I teach that the New Testament commands it. Now, I wish I could come across a Church of Christ debater one time in my life before I die who can properly quote me and represent me, and even when I'm in a debate with them and refute what they're using from me, they will back off and say, I see, Bob, I misstated it. I misunderstood you. But I've debated them time after time, and every last one of them will try to use Ross against Ross, and I can get on the platform and straighten it out, and they still get it all mixed up. But now Mr. Hatcher is so proud of his work over here. He used two colors. He got lines in here to make sure it's straight. And, you know, that's real pretty, that's real big. That's the most outstanding thing he did in the debate, but it means nothing because Ross doesn't teach that there's an absence of commands. Ephesians 5:19, Colossians 3:16 command the instrumental music under the word psalms and making melody, which I showed you last night and will continue to show you. So I hate to spoil the best effort he made. I'm sure he took at least 2 days or more to make that chart, but it's absolutely useless. Now let's go to the chart M1. I want to repeat this one for you. Or wait a minute, I've got some before that one, haven't I? No, go ahead, that's it. That's it, sure. Now I want to repeat this one for you. $100 reward for a Bible verse where singing is called music. You bring it down here to me, ladies and gentlemen. I got the $100 right here in my pocket with me tonight for the verse that singing is called music in the Bible. In the Bible. Here's your $100 right here. Now let's go to the next one, brother. M2, anti-instrumental music adherence, false motto. We call Bible things by Bible names. If so, where does the Bible call singing vocal music? Now, on that particular item, Mr. Hatcher had a chart up there a while ago where he says how one authorizes direct statements, examples, implication. Ross agrees that's completely foreign to anything he can find in this book that they say this quote is from. Ross was talking about at the bottom of page 65, the words vocal music are sometimes used by some, but there is no direct statement, account of action, or implication that this is a Bible expression. I just borrowed their jargon to refute their so-called vocal music. Ross doesn't agree with anything along that line. That's just their jargon. And I just threw it back in their lap. All right, now let's go to the next one. Wait a minute. Am I through with this one?
M2?
Yes, I'm through with that one. Go ahead. All right, M4, I believe it is. Vocal music. Now, this is his terminology. You see these quotation marks? That's not mine. That means it's somebody else's. And who is it? Michael Hatcher. Vocal music. It's a man-made terminology, or is it Bible terminology? Now, if you ladies and gentlemen out there got your Bibles in hand, just turn to the book, chapter, and verse where you read vocal music, and bring it down here to the front. I'll walk off the platform, and y'all can say you won the debate. Now, what's Hatcher's answer? Let's go to the next one. Roy Deaver refutes Michael Hatcher. Now, what did Hatcher say in the newspaper on 7/23/92? Hatcher, when God specifies singing, that excludes any other type of music. That excludes singing with an instrument music, and also excludes instrumental music by itself. Mr. Roy Deaver refutes Hatcher. Deaver says it's simply wrong for one to argue that sing excludes play. That's from the Spiritual Sword. I have the original issue over here. And Deaver says sing does not exclude play. I have it as Bible Authority book, page 85. G.C. Brewer and Alan Hire support the position of Deaver that sing does not exclude play. So it's Deaver, Brewers, and Hires versus Hatcher. Which one speaks where the Bible speaks? Now we go to RD number 1. We have Roy Deaver again saying, sing does not exclude play. Now I want Mr. Hatcher to tell us. He didn't tell us last night. Will he tell us tonight? Does he agree or disagree? Now let's go to RD number 6. The era of Hatcher on the law of exclusion, and he will receive a copy of this chart, the others you had from last night. Michael Hatcher said in the Informer Star, when God specifies a thing, that excludes everything else. Do you read it up there at the top? Then Hatcher said, again, when God specifies singing, that excludes any other type of music. That excludes singing with an instrument and also excludes instrumental music by itself. Contrary to Hatcher, Roy Deaver said, I did stress and I continue to stress that an example does not exclude. In fact, in the Old Testament, the Israelites were indeed instructed to sing and also to play. The sing did not exclude the play. Sing does not exclude play. It authorized singing. Now look back up at Hatcher. When God specifies a thing, that excludes everything else, and he says that excludes instrumental music. Deaver says no, sing does not exclude play, it simply authorizes singing. Therefore, according to Deaver, Ephesians 5:19 does not exclude instruments, it merely authorizes singing. G.C. Brewer says, singing does not preclude or interdict instrumental music. Alan Hire says the command to sing includes only what it states singing. Now I'm quoting these Church of Christ men to show you that Michael Hatcher is not on the cutting edge of Church of Christ doctrine these days. He's living in the dark ages when that old argument flew, but it won't fly anymore. Even Church of Christ preachers have abandoned that argument. Now let's go to E5. Hatcher's error on solo would make Ephesians 5:19 mean singing and singing. Now he said in his answers a while ago, and we'll go back to that, he said that solo means sing only, he said, in the New Testament. All right, Hatcher claims solo in the New Testament simply meant to sing in the Informer Star. But Roy Deaver refutes Hatcher. Singing is one thing, making melody with a heart is another. Making melody is the translation of the Greek salantes, present participle of solo. It should be noted that salantes is used in addition to adantes, singing. If adantes means singing, then obviously salantes means something other than or in addition to singing, for otherwise Paul would be commanding singing and singing, which is what Mr. Hatcher says, because he has solo meaning sing. So he has sing and sing, singing and singing in Ephesians 5:19. Deaver rightly says solo means play, and it does demand the instrument, and he of course believes the instrument is the human heart. I disagree with that, but he does at least acknowledge the truth on the word salantes. Hugh McCord also refutes Hatcher on solo, for McCord says solo means play in Ephesians 5:19. Ephesians 5:19 is singing and playing according to Deaver and McCord versus Hatcher's singing and singing. Let's go to Ephesians 5:19. Speaking to yourselves in psalms, hymns, spiritual songs, singing, making melody in your heart to the Lord. Now, look at this, brother. It's E1. You have it up there? Ephesians 5:19. Did I have one out of place? Okay. Ephesians 5:19. Old Testament lyrics, words, and poems. Psalms, hymns, spiritual songs. The singing is the human sound, adantes, and the making melody, salantes, is the instrumental music. Here's your passage that authorizes the use of instrumental music in the worship, and he wants to say that this word also means sing, which would mean singing and singing, according to what Roy Deaver says. Deaver says the word salantes means play and implies and demands the instrument, and he believes the instrument is the heart. I don't believe that. It's in the heart that both the singing and the making melody take place, because out of the heart proceed all the issues of life. Now let's go on to the next one. E2, a look at Ephesians 5:19. Singing adantes and making melodies, solantes, in your heart. Both the singing and the playing are to be in your heart. If the playing is silent, so is the singing. If the heart does the playing, it also does the singing. Question: can my opponent explain how the singing is audible and in the heart, and yet the playing is silent? How can these things be? Let's look at E3. Making melody, solantes, Ephesians 5:19. King James Version translates it, making melody. Also the ASV, RSV, NASB, and the New International Version says make music. Also the New English Bible. Now how does one make melody? Isaiah 23:16 tells you how one makes melody. Well, Hatcher said in the newspaper, oh, well, that was a harlot. Well, Mr. Hatcher, we're not talking about who's doing the making of the melody. We're talking about how it's made. Not who's doing it, but how's it made. And it says here, take a harp, go about the city, thou harlot, thou hast been forgotten. Make sweet melody, sing many songs. Now you find me a passage in the Bible where the making melody is singing. This one says you take a harp and you make the melody, and that's the only place in the Bible, ladies and gentlemen. You check it out, get your concordance, get your Bible down, check it out. The only place you'll find the Bible that teaches you how to make melody is Isaiah chapter 23, verse 15, and you do it with a harp. Now, how does one make music? Well, in Luke 15:25, and that's how it's translated in the New International Version, Luke 15:25, the only place in the New Testament, ladies and gentlemen, where the word music appears. You check it out now, the word music, check it out. 15 and verse 25, it says here, and now his elder son was in the field, and he came and drew nigh to the house. He heard music and dancing, and the word is symphony. They had a symphony going on there, and he heard it. And so that's how you make music. Now you check the word music out, and if you can find that word meaning singing in the Bible, now, find in the Bible, give you $100. Ephesians 5:19, in your heart simply means the heart is in it. N.B. Hardeman, great champion of the Church of Christ, 1923 debate, if there be not the heart in it, it is not the worship demanded by God. Tabernacle Sermons, volume 2. Pages 279 and 280. I have the book with me. Then Hardeman says the heart must be in it. Now, speaketh the truth in his heart, Psalms 15:2 says. Speaketh the truth in his heart. You mean in his heart he's speaking it? Or is it out of the mouth with the heart being the source of it? You see, he's trying to say this playing takes place in the heart. It does take place in the heart as the source. But then the playing is really on the outside on the musical instrument. Now, it does not mean silent speaking, but the heart is the source of the speaking the truth. The same is true of playing, which is in the praise of God. Ephesians 6:6, doing the will of God from the heart. Now, Ross said the heart is where both singing and playing are to have their roots, for worship must be with the heart. This has always been required by divine law according to Deuteronomy 6:5. Now, that's also in my book, Camelites, Cowbells, Rosary Beads, and Snake Handling, on page 9. Now, let's go to GCB 2. Here's the authority principle, and this is G.C. Brewer here saying that in the music controversy, the words do not preclude or interdict things that they do not include, right here. But a word may not, in the music controversy, words used do not preclude or interdict things that they do not include. So you can't quote singing and say that excludes music. That's what Brewer is saying. And Alan Hires says the word sing does not preclude or interdict. Now these two men up against Mr. Hatcher over here, and he has some learning to do from his elder statesman. Now let's look at his chart, number 3A rather, my chart of his ad. 3A came out in the Burt Burnett paper before I ever knew Mr. Hatcher existed, although I understand he did attend one of my debates one time, and he's on a video film, but I didn't know who he was. Now, in this ad here, I'm putting that up to show you some things. He said, God specifies the thing, that excludes everything else. That contradicts Brewer, contradicts Hires, contradicts Deaver. Now, when God specifies singing, that excludes any other type of music. Let's have the next chart now to comment on this. I want you to notice Hatcher's faulty law of exclusion. Michael Hatcher in the Burke Burnett paper, when God specifies a thing, that excludes everything else. Michael Hatcher, when God specifies singing, that excludes any other type of music. Versus Roy Deaver, a command does not exclude. Sing does not exclude play. G.C. Brewer, I read you his. Alan Howard, I read you his. Now let's go to the next one, 4A, Hatcher. Again, here he says some things I'm going to have to come back with in my next speech to reply to. But let's get it up there right quick. He says words change their meaning. At one time, solo did carry the idea of the instrument. Then it did not include instruments in the New Testament now. It simply meant to sing. That contradicts Roy Deaver, contradicts Hugo McCord, and contradicts other of his brethren who know more about the Greek and more about the history of it than he does. Thank you.